Hello, everyone. My name is Rich Martin, Technical Marketing Engineer with Itential, and today we're going to discuss our demonstration around multi-domain automation for SD-WAN branch deployments. One of the insights that we've gained from working with several of our customers is that in a typical SD-WAN branch turnup, a lot of the focus is centered around the purple area here, which is the implementation and activation of the SD-WAN deployment. Normally, we think of automation within SD-WAN as compartmentalized. There's going to be a lot of benefit to using SD-WAN, and one of those is to very quickly and easily onboard branch offices. But one of the insights we've learned from working with our customers and helping them in their automation journey is that there's so much more going on outside of that particular domain. And if you think about it, going from planning and scheduling, where you're logging tickets in ITSM systems, design and preparation, where you may have to pull subnet information from an IPAM device, from the actual implementation itself, and then everything from verification and closure, that's a significant amount of time. And so while you can save a tremendous amount of time in automating just in the SD-WAN component of turning up the branch office, if you're deploying hundreds or perhaps thousands of these remote locations, you start to see that there are other areas that can be automated across. And so one of the things that we've been able to do with our customers is help them automate across that. And so what you really need is a solution that can attend to not only the multiple domains within networking, but also domains outside of that. And so that's what Itential is. Itential is a multi-domain network automation platform. What we do is we're able to understand the network elements, the network devices, whether it's physical networks, whether it's virtual networks and cloud native network constructs. What we'll talk about today is SD-WAN and even data center. We can talk to the underlying systems and controllers that you already have in place within the entire network infrastructure. But going beyond that, we take an API first approach. So when we speak to all of these devices, all of these systems, all of these controllers, all of these orchestrators, we take an API first approach so that even within the network domain itself, where you have controllers, and in this case, we're going to be using an SD-WAN controller in our demonstration, we can talk to all of the major vendors. So Viptela, Versa, Silverpeak, VMware's VeloCloud, Cisco Meraki, they all have controllers that use APIs on the northbound. And so our automation platform can integrate with all of these, and we can take a specific workflow and adapt it to every one of those SD-WAN controllers, as well as anything else that you have in controlling other parts of your network. On top of that, because it's the API first approach, we can integrate with other systems, and this is where we get great benefit with multi-domain automation. ServiceNow. In this particular case, we're going to open an ITSM change ticket request through our automation in ServiceNow. We're going to be able to identify physical asset tracking. So if you're mailing out a hardware device to a branch office, pulling in the up-to-date tracking information from FedEx. We're going to be able to do request IP subnet information from an IPAM system like Netbox. Be able to notify the change change request start, and once we get that information, communicate it through communication platforms like Slack and even email and Outlook. Part of the network focus of the automation is the pre-checks. There's policies that a network engineer needs to go through to pre-check to make sure before we do any changes, everything looks like it's in place. We'll do the actual branch provisioning through the SD-WAN controller. In this case, it'll be Meraki. And then we'll do the post-check policies to make sure that what we actually intended to do was accomplished. Finally, we'll also communicate through the changes through Outlook, Slack, and then update and close the ITSM ticket through ServiceNow. And as you can see, this is truly a multi-domain approach to the automation of one specific thing, SD-WAN. So now I want to drop into our platform. This is the home screen for the Itential automation platform. And the first place I want to take us to is the automation catalog. If you take a look at the automation catalog, this is where we can actually publish automations that have been created within the automation studio. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. In this case, I'm going to pull up the automation that I've created for this demonstration. And we're going to go ahead and run it manually. And the first thing I want you to see is when we publish an automation, this could very well be a self-service situation where you can have a team or a group, whether it's networking or outside of networking, run these published automations. And we can present a form, and in this case, we're presenting a form where we can allow people who run the automation to select, in this case, the SD-WAN vendor that they want to provision. And we'll use Meraki here for this demonstration, to input a network name that they want to call this particular branch office. In this case, email address for notifications, and then a list of devices and their serial numbers so that we can onboard and associate those devices with this new branch turnup. So I'm going to go ahead and run this automation and let it get kick-started, and then I'm going to take us over to Automation Studio. In Automation Studio, this is where we actually get to create automations on a canvas. And so the first thing I'll do is I'll show you a list of the automations that we have available. So these were created, they could have been created by the networking team, a DevOps team, or any number of teams who have access to this platform and now can create automations. They could be specific to networking, or they could be specific to something else, and then integrated and used in different automations so that there's reusability and collaboration between teams. In this case, I'm going to bring up the automation and show everyone the automation that's actually being run right now. On the left side of the automation studio, beneath automations, you'll see we have forms. Forms were like the forms that we presented at the very beginning when we ran this from the automation catalog, allowing defined input to be used as part of the automation from the end user. We also have a bunch of different things called command templates and analytic templates. These are used so that you can execute CLI commands on network devices and then take the output of those CLI commands and use them in your workflow. So for instance, if we do a show version on a network device, we could take the output of that and validate that it's going to match the version that we want, or be below the version that we want. These templates are also useful for things like pre-check and post-check. We can do something like in show IP BGP summary, get the summary information of the existing BGP sessions before a change, make the changes to the network, and then execute the same command, and then present the information, the output of both of those, and see if there's any differences or similarities, and use that as a workflow process. And then we have templates that allow you to take volumes of output from a CLI command and parse them in a very efficient way so that you can get to the data you want in a workflow. So if we look really quickly at the Automation Studio canvas in the middle, we can see a number of logical workflows. And so every one of these green boxes is an automated task. So the automated tasks come from the right side here, where we can literally select them and drag them onto the canvas. They come either built into the platform, or they become available through our adapters, which are the interfaces into the different systems that you have. So the Meraki controller, the ServiceNow server, those things through the API interfaces. So once those adapters are onboarded, those become tasks that can now be put quickly in a very low code way onto the canvas. The purple boxes are operations and automation operators. They allow you to do things like take data from the output of one task, manipulate it so that it can be used for the input of another task. So for instance, in this case, we're using something like a call into the NetBox IPAM system to get an IP address. Now we want to take that IP address and turn it into the input. So that's the output of one task, and turn it into the input of a task that allows it to be used as a description in a ServiceNow ticket. And so that's what the purple boxes will allow you to do, data manipulation like that. And finally, the blue boxes are manual processes that require human intervention. So they will stop the workflow and allow a human to interoperate with the task at hand. And we'll take a look at a lot of that in just a moment. Now, the next place I'm going to take us to is the job manager. So we ran the job at the very beginning, and now we go to the job manager, and we can see that this is the job that's running, the SD-WAN branch deployment. And we can take a look at the real-time process of where this task is. And so as I zoom into this a little bit, you can see it's halted at a blue task. So recall what I just said, a blue task is manual. It requires human intervention, and it makes a nice stop point for us in this demonstration so that we can see what has just happened before it continues. Otherwise, the automation would have been done by now. In this case, what have we actually what's actually occurred in the demonstration? Well, the first thing is we've integrated and pulled down some information from FedEx on a tracking number. And then we've gone and done an input into Netbox to pull down an IP address. And then we are taking that information and opening up a ServiceNow ticket. So let's take a look at some of those systems. So from a Netbox, so this is the interface into our Netbox. The prefixes that are now installed and allocated, we can see right here, demo network has been allocated through our automation at 10.0.0.0/16. So now we have an IP address for the branch. Let's see. From a Slack perspective, take a look at this. This automation has now created a Slack message and broadcast it to a Slack channel. Now imagine that you have a team and the tool that they prefer to use could be network operations. And the tool they prefer to use for these kind of notifications is Slack. And so now our integration can now broadcast into that Slack channel the very specific information that they require. So in this case, a network automation team needs to know that the SD-WAN branch deployment for a demo network has started. Here's the IP address that was allocated. And if they want to take a closer look into the job on the automation platform, they can click that link. And more importantly, we've automated a ServiceNow change request ticket. And if we look at that, we can see that the ticket has been generated. It includes all of the information from the form, from the Netbox IP address, and the FedEx tracking information that shows that this hardware device was delivered. And so if you'll permit me to very quickly go through the process of approving this change, then we can go through and continue the process in the demonstration. So as I work through, this would normally be done by a group or different groups, but we're saving a lot of time by automating all of the ticket process. So now we go to the implementation stage. If we save it here, now our automation can continue on. So I'll go back. You see we're waiting here at this stage. I can go into the detail view of the job and I can actually work this task now. So if I click work task and I click proceed, now the automation will continue. That satisfies the requirement of the manual intervention. And so now if we look a little bit deeper into this, we'll start to see that the tasks are operating one at a time, complete, and now it's going into a running stage for this child job. This is where we're starting to do the network automation with the Meraki controller, but before that was even done, if I look over here, we've gotten a couple of emails. This one email here that was just sent was sent by the automation. Now imagine another team, a separate team. Maybe this is a DevOps team or a network automation team. Their tool of choice is to be notified via email using very different set of information. They want to see specific information to the job details of the platform. So the automation can now integrate with email and Outlook and send that according to their needs. So let's go back to the Meraki. So now it should have been integrating into the Meraki controller and creating the new branch network. And so what I'll do here is I'll refresh the screen, and now we can see a new network has been created called the demo network, which was what was on the form as defined for this branch. But you'll notice here that there are no devices that have been allocated to this, and that's on purpose, so we could stop this and take a look at it step by step. So let's go back to the workflow and let's see where we've stopped. We've stopped at another blue task, which is a manual task. So let's go back to the details, and this is where we can work that task. So we'll work the task. And what this is telling us now is that the SD-WAN branch network has been created, but now we have to associate hardware with this device. And that's where that serial number from the original form when we ran it comes from. That's the serial number of the hardware device that was shipped out to the branch. And now we can associate it by claiming it. And this will cause the workflow to continue forward. And now it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to update the change request. It's going to, as well as onboard the hardware. It's going to set up some network alerts within the Meraki controller. It's also going to do some post checks because we want to make sure that the change that was intended and inflicted on the network actually occurred. So it's going to go through some post checks, and then it's going to finally send a notification email saying, hey, this is completed. and it's going to close out the change request in ServiceNow, and then it'll pause for us. So while it's doing that, let's go to, let's see, our email. And again, this group that is using email for their notifications, could be DevOps, has now been given a new email saying, hey, the status is completed. And here is the depth of information they require in regards to the job, the process, and everything. So now they've gotten a further notification. On the change notification, one of the things we can see here is that we were set in the implement stage when everything started running again. If we refresh this, we can now see it's in the close stage. So because everything's finished successfully, we were able to move the ticket forward automatically through the automation and bring it to a closed state after the pre-checks and the post-checks. And then finally, if we look at the Meraki controller, in order for it to be successful, we needed to have onboarded a device. So right here, we see that we've onboarded that single device as part of this new SD-WAN branch turn-up. And so that was successful. So now let's go back to our workflow. And now we see we're at the final stage of the workflow, which is asking us to roll back. And as part of this, this is our last manual task. If we go back to details and we can work this task to cause it to proceed forward, what we're actually going to do here is roll everything back to the initial network stage before anything was put into place. So this allows you to see the capabilities of, if there needs to be a rollback scenario, being able to automate this task. And of course, we've put these human intervention, the blue boxes, in purposely so that we could show you every single phase of the automation. But ideally, this could be automated end-to-end with very little or no human interaction. So while that's proceeding and completing, let's do a recap. An SD-WAN branch deployment will require the interaction of multiple groups, multiple systems, and multiple domains. Using the Itential automation platform, this workflow was able to automate across many of those different domains. We used tracking information of the shipped hardware through FedEx. We were able to go into Netbox and show the allocation of IP addresses. We were able to do Slack and email notifications to 2 different groups using the tool sets of their choice, the right tool for the right job. And then we were able to not only create, but update and close a ServiceNow ticket for the entire end-to-end process, and include the information that we gained from those other domains into the descriptions, so that everybody was up to date on exactly what was going on and the status of things like delivery of the hardware. And then last but not least, we ultimately were able to work within the Meraki network controller to onboard and allow it to do what it is focused on, to very quickly onboard new branch offices. And so now let's shift back over to our discussion. Hopefully you've seen how the multi-domain problem can be solved with an automation platform. One of the things that we pride ourselves at Itential is being able to very quickly help our customers simplify and accelerate these network automation tasks. One of the things we do is we make adapters freely available. Those adapters are where the tasks come from the Automation Studio. They are the integrations that are available to all the different systems. So the thought here is, what are you already using? Not just in your network, but across all the different IT systems, IPAM, ITSM, all kinds of other systems that might be necessary to end-to-end a particular network service. Pick your adapters. Those are freely available, and you can integrate those into the platform. And then along with that, what do you want to do? We want to provide freely available, open sourced automations, and that's exactly what we do. So within our development site, you can see things like automations for software upgrade, SD-WAN branch management, configuration, golden config and compliance, DNS upgrades, things like that. These are the use cases that come up all the time with our customers. So we want to make those freely available so that you can very quickly enable your team, your net team, your network team, your DevOps team to onboard inside the platform. So again, at Itential, we want to thank you for your time and have a great day.